Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Something Super Spiritual. I have our resident astrologer in the house today to give us a most recent astrological weather report. Dena DeCastro, thank you so much for being here again with me.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. It's so great to be here. I always enjoy it.
I do too, and so do the listeners and the viewers. They love this information. So that's awesome. So yeah, let's
That's
talk
great.
about what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah. So there are a few things that are in the news in terms of astrology right now. I guess the big main the main event currently is that Jupiter Mars conjunction that was exact last week, the 14th. But when planets come together, and this is an alignment between Jupiter and Mars where they're conjunct, meaning if you were to look in the sky, they're right next to each other, aligned. And there's the astronomy of that you could actually go out and look in the sky and see that these planets are together. So you've been hearing about that a lot in the news, like go out and check out Jupiter and Mars before sunrise, right?
Yes.
And so it's definitely do that because it's pretty magnificent. Those are both bright planet. Jupiter especially is a bright planet, and it's really cool to see them. And I'll talk about how, another period in which to see them coming up. But the astrological part of it is that Jupiter magnifies archetypally whatever planet it's touching, and so it's emboldening the Mars archetype right now.
Okay.
And this is spanning really the whole month of August is when this is in play. So we've still got through the end of August where this alignment is astrologically in range. Mars is a planet of passion and action. And it's also about things like anger, so that can be coming up too. Anger, rage can be also magnified. So it's not all happy, happy, joy, joy. Everything has its light and its shadow. Yep. And some of what I've been reading astrologically about it has been leaning more towards the positive, just because it's Jupiter. We think Jupiter is about good luck, right? It's about opportunity. Awesome. And Mars comes along and is triggering more Jupiter energy too. I think of Mars, when Mars lines up with a planet, it's like adding gasoline to something. It's like adding gasoline to a fire, right? It's like,
yes.
And then Jupiter is a magnifying influence. So you put these two together, that's a very potent force right now.
Oh my gosh, sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is bringing up opportunities for all kinds of things. But how do we want to tap into that and consciously bring that through in our lives? This is a very good time to get unstuck from something if you've been feeling stuck. I think to that episode that you had not too long ago about momentum and moving through stuff, like moving through stuck places. I really loved that episode.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was really, it really spoke to me. But I thought about that when I was thinking about this transit, because it is about just moving right now toward what you want, even if you can't see the bigger picture at the moment. Just take a step towards something, right?
Yep.
And I think that was some of what came through in that podcast, but it feels very aligned to right now. Now, that said, we're in a Mercury retrograde. So it's Mercury retrograde times are not so much about forward momentum and pushing toward things. But I would say with this alignment that's going on, the Jupiter Mars, I'm just inviting people to explore and experiment more with little baby steps and not necessarily need to have some big strategy of, how is this all going to play out in the end right now? Like just start playing with actions and see where that takes you toward the things that you're passionate about. So these two planets are both in Gemini right now. So this Gemini influence, you said before we got on, Gemini is an awesome sign, and it totally is. It's my rising sign, so I'm a little prejudiced.
I love Gemini. I do. I love Gemini energy.
It's a fun energy. It's about being open, playful, and youthful, and curious, and open-minded. And with these two planets together in Gemini, it's inviting us to look at things in our lives with fresh eyes, a fresh perspective, and to become curious like children again, right? So, like in my own life, I've definitely been struggling with feeling stuck in a creative project or like paralyzed almost. Like,
Yep.
I don't know which direction to go. And then I'm trying to tap into this energy now and just say, okay, I just need to do something and mix it up and be
Yeah.
playful with it.
Yeah.
And that's really the spirit of Gemini for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and that whole aspect of being playful is such a high vibrating frequency as it is. So
Mm-hmm.
when we are able to tap into that within ourselves, that inner child, that inner childlike curiosity and inner childlike inspiration,
Yeah.
naturally it's going to buoy the vibe, it's going to buoy the energy, and that higher frequency just kind of like starts to naturally flow in ways where if we have been stuck, suddenly we're kind of having more fun with it and we don't care so much about the feeling stuck and we're just kind of going with it. And suddenly,
Mm-hmm.
the doors kind of open up and we're having so much fun with it. We didn't realize it. And all of a sudden, boom, we're unstuck. And we're like, when did I get unstuck? Well,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Like, and even things that you might think of as the shadow expression of this, like anger
yeah.
coming up. Anger is a good motivator sometimes.
Oh,
Sometimes we hit a frustration or anger point and we're like, okay, this is actually going to help me move out of this stuck place I've been in,
100%. That in
Yeah.
itself is, I mean, there is sacred anger. And the
Yeah.
sacred anger is that which propels us in ways where we weren't able to, get our butt off the couch, But,
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we all get to a point where we're just kind of get tired of our own BS. And we're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I've got to do something. I've got to do something. I'm tired of having my same old excuses, my same reasons, my same this and my same that, and I'm still not going anywhere. And all of a sudden, we just like shift that through that sacred anger on our insides, and
Yeah.
we're not taking no for an answer anymore. We're not taking resistance or roadblocks or challenges as motivators to quit, but we're like, no, we're going to push through it, and then combine that
Yeah.
with the childlike portion within ourselves. And yeah, that's beautiful.
It's a really good risk taking energy that's
Yeah.
available to us right now. And if we can remember that sometimes we have to remind ourselves things are not as high stakes as we think they are,
Oh,
meaning we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to get everything right the first time we do something,
totally.
right?
Mhm.
And we want it to be perfect. All that perfectionism stuff comes up. But it's more important right now in light of this archetype, this lineup of these two planets, to just do it and not worry too much about it being perfect and just let it rip, take the risk. And if so, what if it doesn't come out exactly right the first time? You have other chances, you'll do it again, right? And just keep
Totally.
going.
You can have
So that's the
lots more
energy.
chances, lots more
Yes.
opportunity.
Right, because this is Jupiter's also about abundance. So
Mhm.
it's reminding us that there's not a scarcity of opportunities to try at certain ideas that we have, that we can just keep trying,
Excellent.
that's
Excellent.
how we have to do it.
Yeah.
So it should be, I mean, I feel very encouraged by this transit. And I feel like that idea of having hope is really up in the ethers right now. We're hearing it on the news a lot.
Oh, we
I'm
sure
hearing it from
are.
people I'm talking to.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, and so I mean that transitions into the Jupiter Saturn square that we are under currently. And the Mars conjunction really is activating this longer ongoing pattern between Jupiter and Saturn that we're in right now. In fact, we're in the first peak of the Jupiter Saturn square currently, like today.
Oh,
Like
wow.
tomorrow I think is the exact but anywhere between August 17th and 23rd is a peak energy of it. And then but this transit goes on for the next several months until late next spring. So Jupiter Saturn square, we've already been talking about Jupiter quite a bit, but when you add Saturn to the mix, this is it's a very contrasting energy to Jupiter. It's about realism. It's about realizing what the limits are of something that we can bump up against. And so we also might be feeling the tension between hope and realism in our
Sure.
lives.
Yep. Yep.
And so it's not just all about hope. We also are feeling that need to be realistic and grounded in our
Totally.
actions. And how you need to balance the two. That's the trick or the lesson here.
When I think of Saturn, one of the main archetypes, when I do, I mean, this is my layman's style, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Saturn to me is the task master father archetype. You know what I mean? That's what I look at Saturn, and that task mastering father archetype who's a disciplinarian about, step 1, step 2, step 3, this is what we got to do. How does that play a role in
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. Actually, I also think, one of the manifestations of Saturn is as the father or the taskmaster archetype. Father time actually comes from the same archetypal source that Saturn / Kronos comes from. Saturn and Kronos are the same.
Oh, yes.
See?
Okay.
Father time. Yep. The guy with the scythe and the hourglass, it's like Saturn keeps track of the work we've put in and what time it is in our lives and how we might be wasting time. Saturn is always a reminder of that too. It's like Saturn standing there with his clock going, with his watch going, okay, it's getting late. You better get on it if you want to get this done. Right. So we're feeling some of that pressure too, but that is good because we could use it to motivate us to act on the dreams, which is more to do with Jupiter, right? Jupiter's about, let's dream big. Let's think big about all these ideas that I have. That's Jupiter and Gemini. Totally. Saturn over here in Pisces is saying, okay, let's stay in touch with the big vision and the plan, and then structure your life in alignment with where you want to get to. But that also takes focus and some discipline, and fathering yourself, in that way is a healthy thing to do, right?
Very healthy. Yeah.
And so it's not just about Saturn being the big heavy or the bad guy. It's about realizing that we need that internal, the good father, archetype in us that says, okay, you've had your dessert. Now it's time to go do your homework. So there's got to be a balance of both. Like Jupiter and Gemini kind of just wants to experience everything and love everything and play. Yeah, it's we energy. Totally. We. I love that. Yeah, it's like a kid on the merry-go-round. Just okay, we're having a blast, right? What's next? And then Saturn saying, okay, and now you need to schedule in time to sit down and actually do the thing that you so want to do. Right? So there's a lot of this tension going on between the Jupiter and Gemini and Saturn and Pisces, and those two planets squaring each other, like I said, from now all the way through really next June. And they'll have more peaks, to that energy, another peak coming up in the spring. But right now we're in it. We're fully in it, when your listeners will hear this. So then finally, kind of the backdrop in August of all of this right now is Mercury retrograde. We're in Mercury retrograde, kind of smack in the middle of it. Mercury went back into Leo on August 14th and is moving backwards through Leo right now and will station direct on August 28th. And then it has something called a post shadow, which for your listeners who don't know, that's Mercury's moving forward, but it still hasn't caught up to where the retrograde started. So this post shadow period will end on September 11th. And that's kind of when it's okay, we're officially done with this Mercury retrograde cycle for this time. And so really for the next month, or for the next 3 weeks or so, 3 to 4 weeks, we're in this period of, okay, step back, get perspective, especially on creative ideas. That's Leo's domain. and how you want to be engaging in play and recreation in your life as a way of fueling you up, it's time to rethink your relationship to that and say, are you getting enough playtime? Are you getting enough time to just goof around and be back to that theme of childlike,
Yeah.
right? It actually ties into a lot of what we were saying in the beginning. Um, so all of these things that I'm talking about, it's like this combination of heavy and light, with the Saturn piece, but also the Jupiter and Gemini, and even this Mercury retrograde. It's like, be playful, be light, take a step back, and also keep the bigger plans in mind. I kind of get this image of like everything's kind of sitting up on a shelf right now of your big plans, and just for the next few weeks and to percolate on.
Yeah.
But you can take these baby steps towards what you want and kind of throw things at the wall and see what sticks.
Yeah. I love this. I love the energy in this.
Mm-hmm.
And even though, Saturn, it's taken me a long time to really appreciate Saturn.
Yeah.
Kind of like it's taken me a
Most
long
people feel that way. Yeah.
it's taken me a long time to appreciate eclipses.
Mm-hmm.
And I in the past I saw Saturn as more of a, well, excuse me. I used the word disciplinarian earlier, and
Mm-hmm.
that can be a really frightful word, depending on one's upbringing. You know what I'm saying? There could be trauma tied to that disciplinarian quote father.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But my point is, you know, there's the disciplinarian father within each of us that might say, hey, you know what? Tomorrow morning we have to get up early. The early bird catches the worm. And I just want the best for you. I want the best for us, for our plans, for why we're here. And we just have to get up early. We have to set the alarm.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful disciplinarian father saying, hey,
Absolutely.
supportive and guiding in a loving manner, right?
Yeah.
And to remember, that which we have put on our top shelf. There are so many of us who have had these plans, whatever they
Mm-hmm.
might be, creative plans, whether it's artistic or musical or maybe starting a business or starting
Mm-hmm.
a website for something. You know what I mean? So many ways to be creative.
Yeah.
And I love the reminder to, to look back at that, because so many of us kind of got shifted off our original roads that we wanted to be on, meaning what were our goals, what we wanted to achieve. Maybe we wanted to be an actor in the theater or whatever, but
Mm-hmm.
life took over and we get caught in these jobs and the 9 to 5 day to day, and then families get larger and more responsibility happens and responsibilities get larger, and that which we were so excited about in the past is suddenly up on that top shelf.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that lights us up from the inside, that makes our little pilot light go from, the little flicker to full rocket burner. And it's that, like Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks talks about being in our vortex, and
Mm-hmm.
and it being in our vortex when we're sending rockets of desire to the universe and to our soul and to our guides and guardians. It's coming from that place, that
Yeah.
inner childlike wonder, that inner childlike excitement, that fiery yes. And so I love what's happening right now, and
Yeah.
I can feel it and I can sense it in a lot of my readings. I thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that it's interesting that this Mars Jupiter conjunction has gotten so much press because they don't always, these alignments don't always get that much attention. But I do feel like it's a message from the gods,
Mhm.
to it's like, okay, here's this energy, here's this fuel. It's available to you right now.
Yeah.
Use it wisely. And so we're being alerted to that for sure. Yeah. And so I'm glad to get to share it with everybody today.
Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
being here.
Yeah, you're so welcome.
Okay, so I had one more question earlier.
Hmm.
Okay, without going into too much detail, because I want to keep this short for everybody.
Hmm.
But aren't there like 4 other planets in retrograde?
There are right now, yeah. So there are, and that can happen pretty commonly. It's not terribly uncommon, but currently we have Saturn, Neptune, Mercury, and Pluto. All are retrograde. And those outer planets, such as Saturn, Neptune, and Pluto,
Sure.
they stay retrograde for several months out of the year. So it's not uncommon for them to overlap in that retrograde quality. The addition to that is right now we have Mercury retrograde.
Mhm.
But it does have an influence that when there's a lot of retrograde planets, like almost half the things in the sky are retrograde, then we do feel that sense of slowing down, of stepping back and getting perspective more so than there's a forward thrust
Yes.
at the moment, right?
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It,
Yeah.
it it
Yeah.
does. It's I truly just think it is all so fascinating.
Yeah.
The synchronicities that happen with the astrological weather,
Hmm.
it's incredible. I mean, from everything from, you know, uh um the Piscean age, or wait, the Piscean age, and where we're going
Hmm.
into the Aquarian age,
Yes.
where
Hmm.
that's like a 2000-year transit.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it is that each age, each astrological age is about 2000 years long. And that period where it's shifting into the next age is, it happens gradually. Most people don't know it that way, but it's not like one day it's going to be the age of Aquarius, that this is happening possibly over the course of 100 years.
I was just gonna say,
Um,
I think it
yeah.
feels like a century to me,
Yes,
for
that's
those
about right.
those
Yeah.
big changes.
Cuspy. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
I just think it's truly fascinating. Everything right down to, the 3-week period that Mercury's retrograde, all the way down to, the moon being in a certain sign for 2.5 days out of the month.
Yeah.
All right. Well, everybody, you heard it here at Something Super Spiritual with our resident astrologer, Dena DeCastro.
Thank you. And yeah, so I just wanted to be sure to let people know about my mentorship program coming up.
Please.
And so, yeah, this is coming right up here. We have the deadline for my mentorship program, which is August 29th. And so it is a program not just for astrologers. And so I actually wanted to, uh, notice that, Jeffrey, all these conversations that we have, something about astrology yourself and you use it in your life. And so, I have for many years too, but even if you're not an astrologer, you might want to know how to use this in your daily life. And so that's also what this program can do for you. And I can help you learn how to use the transits like we're talking about, Jupiter and Mars together. Where is that in your chart? I'm teaching people how to find that in their personal chart. And so I'm really about helping you to find the ways that you can use astrology in your daily life, not just as a business, but, to read your own chart, to look at the charts of friends and family. And that's also a big focus of the program. So if you're interested, please check out my site and my page, which is denadecastro.com/mentorship. You can also email me at dena@denadecastro.com and reach out to me with any questions.
Fabulous.
Okay.
I love that. I love how you're able to help people understand this a little bit more, to the point where it just really brings a little bit more clarity, specifically with how to plan. I mean, when
Yeah.
you know what's happening and where it is in your chart, which house it's in, it's that awareness, that extra knowledge is just so helpful in making these plans. It's awesome.
And you've used it that way, haven't you? Like
Mhm.
just knowing, okay, this is happening. Jupiter's in Gemini. You can look at where Gemini is in your own chart, for
Mhm.
example. You know enough to do that and
Yeah.
say, oh, it's in my, what house is it in for you? Do you have a
Oh,
offhand,
I was just thinking,
maybe ninth or eighth,
I think it's
something like
later.
that?
Yeah, it is later in the eighth or ninth.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So then you can just apply all of these things that we've said about Jupiter and Gemini to your personal chart, right? And so that could be really helpful just on an opportunity planning basis, looking for times in your life where certain opportunity periods are going to be ripe. And especially with Jupiter transits, it's a really handy thing to know, where is Jupiter in my chart right now? Because that's where the opportunities are coming in, right? And where the abundance is tending to flow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, my dear. Well, thank you again so much for being here.
You're so welcome. It was a delight.
And everybody, I will have Dena's information in the show notes as usual. And until next time. Thank you again for listening to the Something Super Spiritual podcast. If you know someone who would enjoy this episode, please do share it with a friend. For show notes, links, and to purchase a mediumship reading, my website is somethingsuperspiritual.com. You can also easily subscribe and follow the show on your favorite app, sign up for my newsletter for bonus content, and to keep the conversation going, you can easily join the Facebook community. It's all right there at the website, somethingsuperspiritual.com. Signing off for now, namaste.